Welcome, everybody, to what promises tonight to be a great evening together at our first Glacier Conversation of 2024. We've got, as I mentioned, a really huge group tonight. In fact, a record. Our guest is more popular than the superintendent and even road plowing on Glacier on the Going to the Sun Road. So really exciting. So we're going to actually give folks a little bit more time tonight to get situated, but to use that time wisely. A number of people tonight have joined us from places not in the Conservancy family. So I thought we'd just take 1 minute. We're going to show a quick video.
The Glacier National Park Conservancy is the official philanthropic partner for Glacier National Park. Private donations provide over $3 million a year in philanthropic support, supporting science, wilderness preservation, and the wonder of Glacier.
Glacier National Park Conservancy, protecting Glacier National Park for future generations.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. My name is Doug Mitchell, and I have the privilege of serving as the executive director of the Glacier National Park Conservancy, the park's official nonprofit partner. And I couldn't be more excited to be joined tonight by our special guest, Josh Hurley. Many of you know and follow Josh on Instagram, where I think your handle is Montana Made 37, and where we can all follow his exploits as the winter caretaker at the Many Glacier Hotel. Josh, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. And I love talking about Glacier, so it'll be no problem.
And you're joining us, in fact, from the Many Glacier Hotel.
I am in the chalet. So those of you who have been up here before, there's a set of cabins as you turn left into the hotel. And I am in the one closest to the road there. And it's, I believe, one of the older buildings in this valley, even older than the hotel, at least the chimney.
That's so cool. And I want to thank our partners at Xanterra. You know, this is a huge commitment on the behalf of the concessionaire to care for this historic property, both in season and out of season. And it really says a lot about them that they make this kind of investment to have you out there all year long and or in the winter, and then have such a robust caring staff in the summer. And if folks haven't stayed at the Many Glacier Hotel, I highly encourage you to do so. If you go online and find that all the rooms are reserved for this summer, do not despair. People do cancel, so do check in occasionally, and you'll get great hospitality from our partners at Xanterra. They're great contributors of ours through the dollar add-on program. And again, the investment they make to protect this historic structure is really terrific. And Josh, you're an important part of that. So let's dive right into it. So this is, talk to us about how the kid from Hamilton has ended up this winter all by yourself at Many Glacier Hotel.
Well, I'll try to keep it short because I love talking about the history of my family. But I, like you said, I grew up in Hamilton, Montana, which is the Bitterroot Valley. A lot of people not from Montana know of it as where the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch really is. It's called the Chief Joseph Ranch out in Darby. So I grew up in that area with a grandfather who was a caretaker for people who didn't stay in that area throughout the time. It can be pretty harsh, not as harsh as up here. So I grew up in the West, and it's always been a goal of mine since coming to Glacier National Park to be out here for a full year. And it's mostly because I understand how special this park is for the 4 or 5 months we get to see it in the summertime. This is a very spiritually positive place. The Blackfeet call it the place where the weather's created. It's very powerful, and for me, I've always been my best self when I've been here. And selfishly, I wanted to live up to my family history and see if I could go out into the wilderness and and make do, and be happy doing it. And thus far, I've loved it, every second of it.
So that talk to me a little bit more. Let's suss out a little bit about that spiritual nature, because I think there are 200 people on the Zoom right now who are all nodding their heads, right? We've all had that feeling, but for a lot of us, it's been in that time where it's busier, and it gets us a glimpse at what peace looks like when we stand at the lakeshore. But talk to us about what that's like when you're truly alone.
Right. So I believe we can all understand what it is to be overwhelmed with the things going on around us. What this does is it strips it down to your base. What do you need to survive? What do you need for happiness? And it's a very different answer when you're up here than it is when you're in a city or a town and you're surrounded by your loved ones. You really have to rely upon yourself. So in that, going out, watching the way the wind blows through the trees. I was out this morning. We have got quite a bit of snow, so y'all should be happy about that. But the wind's been cool. And the way that the wind forms these once in a lifetime shapes that melt and they're never seen again, to me, that's astonishing. Being able to take a step back and really just see what's going on around you without being in your phone, those kinds of things. So the spirituality is really just a quieting of the world around you, and the ability to kind of get in touch with the things you might not cultivate very often in those other scenarios.
It really shows you, I can imagine, really the power of nature, right? And I mean, do you feel an essence of your place in the world being different than it might be when you're on aisle 7 in Safeway?
Right. I think we all have this built in. We feel safe in a lot of places. That's to be debated depending on where you live, but I always feel safe here, but I'm fully aware that I am the lowest on the totem pole. I could fall into water. I could fall and hit my head, and the MPS and the Xanterra do a very, very excellent job of making me feel safe and knowing that I have support. But the reality is I need to be able to support myself. That's the general thing. So you feel alone, but there's a sense of pride and self-confidence you get from fixing a problem that nobody else can help you with. There's a beauty to it. So I think
so talk us through that. So you arrive, everything's great, you have your first couple of quiet nights. Tell us about your first problem and how you dealt with it.
So my first real problem was, one of those things I should have known better about. I grew up in the wintertime. I know about freezing pipes, but there's something about -40 with -60 degree wind chill that it doesn't matter if you have your water on for a trickle. My pipes froze solid. And the reality is I'm quite a few miles away from the road that even gets me into town. That's just, so if my pipes are frozen and I can't get them unfrozen and it bursts, I have to leave. And then this place is not being taken care of throughout the winter. The elements each winter do a number on it. And that's really what we're out here to do. What I'm out here to do is to take note of what the elements are doing, do any stopgaps I am, but I'm a kind of an observe and report, so I'm sorry I got off track there.
No, that's great. So talk to us about the resolution. Did time fix that, or a hair dryer, or how did we resolve that?
So I first went online and I bragged about getting it unstuck, and it was not unfrozen. Just a little bubble apparently. So I spent the next 3 days. I went below the house. I had heaters plugged in below there, and then I was down there, for hours at a time, honestly, with a hair dryer, going back and forth. And I had a fire behind me, stoked up as hot as it would go, just getting it hot in here.
Right.
And there are problems you run into when you don't have water. I had plenty of snow on the ground, so boiling water for coffee and stuff, not a problem, filtering it. But how do you go to the bathroom? How do you shower? I spent $1,400 on food prep, which I haven't touched with the exception of opening one and using it, for a bathroom, which I then had to get rid of. But you figure out ways to make it work. And I have a great boss his name's Dave Wilson. He's done it for 4 years before me. So if there are things that I'm worried about, I know that I have somebody that's been through it before that is willing to share that information. Frozen pipe story, you just got to spend time. And eventually I got it. And I assure you, every time, last night it was -5. I had the cold water on full blast throughout the night, just to make sure nothing froze up.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But and you say it as if it's commonplace, right? Well, I had plenty of snow, so I could boil water, right? But that's not the first thing that comes to an urbanite's mind, right?
No.
When the pipes freeze, the first thing is, I'm in real trouble here, right? So there's a new level, I imagine, of management in your life, because I'm in trouble here and I'm going to give up isn't really an option, is it?
It's not an option, and really a part of this is reinforcing that I have that in me. I'm a veteran. I was military police, and I suffered through some PTSD throughout the years, and I didn't I didn't get it checked up. I wasn't taking care of it like I was supposed to, and that can really mess with your self-esteem and confidence, I think. So once I started going to therapy with the VA hospital, I still do that out here, which is a beautiful thing to be able to really, really concentrate on therapy. It's also been one of the remarkable things I've gotten to do. But in terms of the PTSD and just the quiet and being able to sit back and figure out a problem and just make it happen and fix it, and knowing I did that, it really goes a long way towards building self-esteem and wanting to provide that for other people, that uplifting feeling, I think.
Right. That's part of the story in your Instagram journey, of being able to share that with people and have them come on that journey with you, which I think is really powerful, and which is why we're all here tonight. I want to go back to what you said earlier about, when you get into place, you start to kind of separate the things that you need from the things you really think you need, right? So talk to us about the stuff that's still in your suitcase or box or whatever it is when you got there that you realize is superfluous to your existence there. What have you found out you don't need?
What I don't need is way more numerous than what I do need. I think in terms of what I don't need, there's too much. I'll start with what I think is become apparent to me that stands out that I can't do without, and that is human relationships. I've really, because of the things I've gone through, I've really put myself on an island a lot of my life, and people have always not understood why it was so hard to get to know me. And I think this has given me the ability to let people get to know me on a level that it hasn't been easy to come by. So really the human relationships are something that I'm realizing I need more and more. Books. I go everywhere with books. Somebody asked earlier what I read. I am a vociferous reader. I love it since I was born. So this is kind of the perfect job for me. I come here, I pick out some books I read. I have a routine I stick with. I wake up at 5 a.m. I make coffee. I step outside with no shoes on, get my feet in the snow if there is some, and it gets you awake. It gets me awake. I love snow. So, and then it's, what do I do today? Do I go to Swift Current and work over there, or do I? Part of the thing I have to do every day is walk through the hotel. It's been a mild winter. The past couple of days, the wind has been blowing snow so hard it goes into the hotel, and I remove it. We don't want it to melt and then create black mold or anything like that. So that's primarily, it's just keep an eye on the big hotel and making sure she doesn't have any damages, roofs lifting off or anything like that. And then and just having your faculties about you all the time. Just because bears are in a torpor, they're not necessarily, especially with this winter, how mild it's been. I've always got bear spray. I've seen plenty of wolves take down moose. I haven't seen it physically, but you see the after effects, and you hear the howling, and it's pretty amazing.
So that's an incredible experience. So generally a day then is, getting up at daybreak, and right now probably quite a bit before daybreak. And do you go to both the Swift Current, and do you look at both of those in a day? Is that, or do you go certain days? How does that work for you?
So I definitely judge it based on weather. Today I didn't go to the Swift Current because the weather is the wind is so brutal. And it was whiteout conditions earlier. I can see to the left, so days like that, I'm always going to go to Many Glacier to check on that. Swift Current, I get over to at least 3 times a week, because I'm putting together bed frames. Anybody who comes and stays in the motel at Swift Current this summer, I put together your bed.
So thank you. That's awesome.
But it's, a lot of it's just walking over there and checking on the buildings. These are all historic, very old buildings that the Park Service entrusts me with, as well as Xanterra, to make sure that if something does happen, I report it immediately so we can take the proper steps. But the routine is every day over to Many Glacier. Depending on how much work there is to do with snow removal, I'll stay there for most of the day. And then every other day or so, I'll go to Swift Current, do a walkthrough, and put some bed frames together.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to turn it over to my partner in crime, Amy Lucky, who is. Please ask questions in the chat, and Amy will curate those. We also have some giveaways tonight. We're going to give away a fabulous Montana Coffee Traders, as they would say in Canada, a toque. We're going to give away a book that, I don't know if you've probably read this already, Josh, View with a Room. This is Ray Duff's classic about the chalets in Glacier National Park. And then for you art aficionados out there, we have a copy of Compliments of the Author, Larry Len Peterson, of the seminal book about John Ferry. When you go into the Many Glacier Hotel, you'll see a lot of the big Ferry paintings. He was contracted by BNSF, or the Great Northern Railroad, to paint for them. So we'll be giving those 3 items away to 3 lucky winners a little bit later. Amy Lucky, I see that there are already questions in the chat, so I'm going to hand it off to you. Oh, I did have one more question before we do that. I wanted to ask, so obviously finding snow is an interesting thing inside a building. What maybe was your first moment? You're over at Many Glacier and you find something that makes you go, this is interesting.
Yeah, so I'm sure those of you who are in Montana and other parts of the US, we all got it. There was that huge cold freeze, right? It was extremely cold all over the place. But specifically up here, it was very windy. With the wind chill, it was -66. It was so cold, it somehow set off the fire alarm in Lower Dorm, which, for those of you who don't know, when you pull in, there's the big hotel on the right, that first big, you're kind of probably wondering if that's the hotel you're staying in. That's the Lower Dorm. That's where a lot of the employees stay. So when I walked in there to turn off the fire alarm, you realize how drafty these buildings actually are, because it was like walking into a geode. With the way that the wind blew in there and just the slightest bit of precipitation, it was diamonds. It was one of the most beautiful things I've seen in terms of, it's not supposed to be there, but it was like walking into a gigantic geode. And I just stood there for a minute, and my headlamp was sparkling off of everything. And I'm just like, this probably doesn't happen very often to other people. And it was that moment of realization. I get those all the time, just being there and completely in awe of the weather and how Glacier was formed, So
wow. What a special experience. What an incredible story. That's really amazing. So yeah. Amy, what do you got for us?
Oh gosh, I have a lot. So thanks to all of you for putting things in the chat. And Anne, look at your cute kitty. Really fun. So Josh, the first two questions were both, is this the greatest job on earth?
Yeah, I definitely think it can be. I do think people need to, it is the greatest job on earth for me. This is the kind of situation I thrive in. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's impossible for others to do, but I do think you have to have a certain constitution. You have to be okay and willing to be away from those that you love, knowing that they're going to be there when you come out, because at the end of the day, you're trapped with your brain, and thoughts can be damaging sometimes. So you gotta really know how to differentiate the thoughts, what's reality and what's not. But I do think it is the greatest job I've ever had or probably ever will have.
That's cool.
Wow. We have a couple of questions about specifically where you're staying and your sort of accommodations. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the building where you are and what you have there? Is it a couple rooms? Is it
right? What I have generally is I have my outdoor. I have a little overhang porch that I put firewood on, and then you come in. You have in the north, you have a mud room or snow room, right? So you come in, all your snowy stuff. It's got a heater in there, so I keep all of my outdoor gear out these two double doors. And as you walk in, facing me, you'll see the fireplace, which is wood heat. I chopped a lot of firewood, and it's great to have wood heat going, but I do have electric heat for those wondering. There's a bedroom that I routinely have as mine, and then I have a guest room on the other side that really is just storage, keep any critters that might get in out of my food storage, because that's very important. You don't want mice to get in with hantavirus. If they poop in your food, it's that food is ruined. You can't use it. So being mindful of where your food is and that you're sharing the space with others who are here year round is very important. I have a kitchen that I can cook in, a full bathroom, and then a little nook. And then for water, it is spring fed. It comes down from the mountain. So it's the best water you could have in the world. It's amazing and no complaints. So
awesome. That paints a really, really good picture. It sounds nice. Sounds lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Is the entire Many Glacier Hotel heated during the winter?
So no. Part of the reason I'm here is we power down the whole hotel. It is over 100 years old. It is made of wood. We do not have the ability when the winter is in full force to come in with a firefighting crew. So I'm out here until I get the word from the MPS to power the whole building down. I'm here monitoring the fire safety. Once we drain the water out, it's very important that they're able to get a hold of me. After a certain point in time, when there's enough snow buildup, they'll ask me to power it down. So the hotel is not heated or powered throughout the winter time. So when I walk through there, you got to have a headlamp. You want to be dressed well, like you're out inside in the elements, because you could be spending some time in there if there's a lot of snow that gets in. In past years, the winter caretaker had the shop open, but we don't do that anymore. We get all of our projects done ahead of time.
Interesting. So speaking of snow entering the hotel, how does that happen? Through broken windows, the wind blows open doors, just finds its way in through cracks and under doors, that sort of thing?
Literally any crevice that exists in this building will have snow press through it. The wind force, it's not just that it's windy, it's the amount of days that it's windy in a row. I believe that the wind is so extreme for most days, more often than not, that the snow it gets pushed through whatever little crack there is. You can't completely seal the building. So but the good thing is you get to know where the drifts pile up. So there's, you go through every room to make sure there's no abnormalities and make sure there's no new damage. And then, the maintenance will come in April. There's a lot of work that goes into getting this hotel up and running for you guys for the summertime. And we start it in April for the most part, getting her started going up. It always reminds me of like the Titanic, what it must have taken, kind of the same, just absolute manpower that it takes to get it going is crazy.
I think that's a really interesting perspective, Josh, because a lot of us just, we close our house, we come back 2 weeks later, we open it with the key, we turn on the lights and off we go, right? The fact that the concessionaire and the park have to make this huge commitment, right, to this idea of chalets being part of this experience that Glacier provides. This would be easier not to do than it is to do, and it really speaks a lot to the commitment of the park and the concessionaire toward the maintenance of this history that for a lot of people is very central to the way they experience Glacier Park. So that's great for those of us to think about when we are anxiously awaiting someone getting our room key. Maybe we could cool our jets a little bit.
And just on top of that, I feel a kinship a lot of the time with the old miners here who had to hike up a mountain most days to go do a mining job, which isn't easy, and then back down. Just the absolute brutality in these conditions, and I'm sitting here with Wi-Fi and, and talking to you. It's an amazing thing. So
incredible.
We're so glad you're talking to us. This is really, really interesting. Speaking of getting around, do you just have your feet? There's not a snowmobile or snowshoes. How do you get around?
Right. So I don't know the exact rules I know that snowmobiles are not allowed. I don't really ask. My feet have got me everywhere. I was a military policeman. Ruck marching is no problem. I love hiking. To me, when I'm walking, because that's how I do get around. I do have snowshoes, but maybe next year I'll get some cross-country skis. But if I'm moving too fast, I'm missing something. And out here at this time, I really think me taking and recognizing each step I'm taking and being able to see what's around me. Spatial awareness for the beautiful parts, but also spatial awareness for danger that could be out there, whether it's avalanches coming down, whether it's wolves out, a mountain lion that might be stalking me, a bear wakes up early. There's just a lot of things that you have to have your head on a swivel for. And it's beautiful. So
I'm skipping around in the chat a little bit, but I promise I'll try to get to everything. But Josh just keeps bringing up some good points. So where's your favorite sort of view or place to go in the winter? And then also somebody wanted to know what's your favorite hiking trail in Glacier?
Yeah, so, all right. In the winter time, I will say that, I on my Instagram, I post videos of small hikes. I don't do anything in the winter that's gonna really put me in a situation where I need the Park Service to fly in and get me, right? So I'm not one of these guys who's gonna go strap on some skis and try to go up Alton and ski all the way down, just because, that's just not me. But I will hike, I have a spot that I like to go to the right of the chalet, and a lot of you will recognize it's where the bighorn sheep really like to hang out in the summertime on the right-hand side over here by Alton. And you get up to a certain point where it's wind blown. It blows so hard that the snow, even no matter how much snow's up there, it's gone. And you can sit up and you can just sit there and take it all in and get scoured by the wind. That's one of my favorite things to do, is just sit into the wind and just let it blow on me. It may sound kind of weird or whatever, but it feels cleansing. It's a really interesting thing. So that's one of my favorite things, going up there. And then my favorite hike, I've been in the park for 10 years as an employee. I've been coming here since I was a little kid. I have a lot of hikes that mean a lot to me. my favorite on-trail hike is probably the Gunsight Pass. You start at Jackson Glacier Overlook and you go all the way to Lake McDonald. Primarily, if you've never done this before, when you get to the Sperry Chalet, they have the best pie and grilled cheese sandwiches of your life after you've gone up this. So that is an amazing experience. You see both sides of the park. Because this park has many different faces. That's the beautiful thing. I could work at Lake McDonald next year and have a completely different experience than I do at Many Glacier. It's just, so that right now is on top of my list, the Gunsight Pass. So those of you coming, definitely think about it. I love it.
That's a good one.
So Doug, I have like two topics I want to hit, and then maybe I'll throw it back to you for some giveaways and maybe an in-depth speed round.
Great.
Josh, it seems like people want to know about what you're eating, and fresh fruits and vegetables. Is that a thing, or?
Yeah, so every caretaker told me, you're not going to buy enough vegetables, buy more than you think. And I did. I bought as many frozen vegetables as I thought would be necessary, and I'm out. So I really, the first few months I had a lot of my comfort foods. Now it's more so I'm truly cooking every meal and, baking bread if I want it. What's been a lifesaver, and I don't want to give them any free credit, but Athletic Greens honestly gives me all of those nutrients I'm missing out on. I get all of my vitamins. So my biome's good. But I had to think ahead for that because I knew the reality was I was probably going to run out of vegetables, and you got to get your vitamins somehow. But I bought $1,400. Hold 1 second, I'll show you. I bought a bunch of these food prep buckets, right? And I've not opened a single one with the exception of bathroom time. So I had plenty of food. Food was not an issue. Creature comforts are, I am a snacker, so I went through all my snacks already, but we got a month left, and it's not a big deal.
I would go through the snacks first too, no doubt. Yeah. So the other topic is books. You brought up that you're a reader. How many books have you read? What's been your favorite this winter? Or, what are some recommendations? What should we read?
Well, so I have read probably 8 to 9 books. And then I've been trying to write too. I've always enjoyed writing, but it's more of a therapeutic thing. There's no purpose to it really. But in terms of books I've enjoyed, I really just read this book called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. That's amazing, just to get creative juices flowing, and there's not a formula for it, so to speak. So Mark of the Grizzly is always a good one. To understand bears, there's something you should be wary of, but I don't think you can't call a bear a true predator like a mountain lion, right? Understanding bears takes a lot of the mystique away from it, and what we want to do is make sure that our behaviors in the park aren't leading to valued and amazing creatures getting put down because of habituation, stuff like that. So that's a good one to read. The Wolverine Way by Doug Chadwick. A lot of you have probably heard about that. There was a big Wolverine study that was done up here years and years ago, and it's just about his time up here doing the Wolverine study. So I've read The Blackfeet, Raiders on the Northwestern Plains. I'm looking for other books about the Blackfeet, maybe written by Indigenous authors, to learn more about the people who have been here forever. Those are just some of the things that I really enjoy learning about.
That's amazing. And so, Amy, I'll take over for a minute or two, and you can. I know you're going to be selecting contest winners, so I'll come back to you for that. Thanks for mentioning Doug Chadwick. He's a great friend of the Conservancy and of people who love animals and public lands all around the world. The Wolverine study is one. It was an early study that the Glacier Conservancy helped fund, and we just did a refresh of that with the park. The park, of course, does them. We just help through donations, and that's part of the important work that we're able to do. And I chose, and Andrew made these beautiful Zoom backgrounds, and I'm happy to share them with you if you're interested in having them. So just email me. But this is obviously, your view. It's a little bit different today as the lake is frozen and there's snow everywhere. But Swift Current Lake, it's an iconic part of the park, and we have really been honored throughout the last number of years to be working with the park on kind of a game-changing project to create a fully handicap accessible, it's called ABA, it's the ADA of the backcountry, accessible trail. And this is behind me now is a view of part of the completed part of that trail. That really is really important work that the park doesn't have the resources to be able to complete a project of that scope, more than $1 million project over 10 years. And so they asked us if we could ask donors to help. And that's our job. We, through private philanthropy, raise money for the park. So we're just about done. Within the next couple of years, there will be a fully accessible trail all the way around Swift Current Lake. And so you think about that change that brings for people, whether it is one of the stories I'll always remember is the guy who's in charge of the project, Dan Jacobs, was checking out the project because it's a very firm structure. Obviously, you're going to roll a wheelchair or something like that. So he had his pocket knife out and he was checking it. And these two, I'll call them experienced hikers, kind of were taking him on saying, "Young whippersnapper, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, ladies, I'm supervising the project." And they immediately said, "Well, they both had walkers." And they said, "We just want to thank you for changing our lives because we always like to walk together. We've done this for years and years. But before you made this trail, we couldn't look at each other because we just were worried about falling all the time. And now that we have this trail, we can go down the trail, sit on the bench, see the moose, and be like everyone else." And it's whether it's those two people, whether it's a family with a stroller, wanting to have that wilderness opportunity. Private donations are making that happen. And frankly, we need your help. So we're going to put in the chat a specific link that goes to a page that we made specifically for tonight. If people are moved by the commitment that Xanterra is making and the park is making and that we're making, and wanted to chip in, that would go straight to this project to be reserved to specifically helping resurface the trail at Swift Current Lake. If people are watching on YouTube, we always also put these on YouTube. That link won't work for you, but you can go to glacier.org, and that's a way you can really help make change in this neighborhood where Josh is committing his winter. So thanks for letting me share that a little bit with you tonight. And I think I get a lot of questions after these. How can I help? So I hope that's a way that can be helpful there. So Amy, you got some winners for us?
I sure do. We have 3 giveaways tonight, folks, which is one more than we usually do. So it's an exciting night. We have a great partner in Montana Coffee Traders, and they have given us some swag to give away. So Doug lets me know that this is called a toque, or I call it a beanie. And our winner of the beanie is Katie Mentecki. And we should be able to pull your information, Katie, and all of our winners from your registration. But if you want to email any of us at the Conservancy, you can do Gracie@glacier.org or Doug@glacier.org. I'm Harder. I'm A Lucky. I'm first initial last name @glacier.org. So Katie's our first winner. And then we have a John Ferry book. Many of the paintings in the Many Glacier Hotel are John Ferry's. And Michael Butler is our winner there. And then finally, we have a book by Ray Duff called A View with a Room. And I didn't say that wrong. It's called A View with a Room, about the lodges in Glacier National Park. And our winner there is Sherry Mabe, M-A-B-E.
Hey,
So
that's
thank you all for joining us.
Sorry.
So shout out to Sherry, Josh.
Yeah, that was my aunt.
Awesome. Oh, nice.
right.
Very nice.
She's an amazing.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
in fact, there's a request, Josh, from John and Marianne and Whitefish that you write a book. So maybe that's part of the second part of this summer if the snow gets really deep. So
yeah, I intend. I've seen on there people asking if I intend to try to do this again. I'll keep doing this job until they feel like it's time for somebody else to do it. Or my girlfriend says no. But next year, the goal is to have her up here, and maybe she does a study. She's with the Park Service, she's trying to present a study, so we'll see. But yes, the goal is to try to keep going back and just build upon the experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So those of you familiar with Glacier Book Club events and Glacier Conversations, it is common for me to offer a speed round. So Josh, I'm going to just ask you a or B question. And I have 6 of them. One I think you've already answered, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Okay, so question, are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so question number 1 is Bobcats or Grizzlies?
Grizzlies.
Okay, Hamilton boy, Ravalli High School, it's got to be the way, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so beverage of choice, were you going to go IPA or PBR?
PBR.
Pabst Blue Ribbon is our winner. Okay, good. That's that's also a good blue collar thing. Okay, when it comes to reading, it's a reading question. Kindle or actual books?
Actual books. Love the smell.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's no replacement for that. I don't think I'll ever be able to change. Okay, so streaming, and there have been a couple of people who've asked this, and I'm old, so I'm going to give you the choices of Netflix or Amazon Prime, but you can choose your own if you wish.
I think Netflix is probably the winner,
Okay. All right. Very good. I just they have a new season up of Sunderland Till I Die, which is terrific.
I love that show.
highly recommend it. Just came out a couple weeks ago. Okay, so now this is a fishing question. Fly fishing or spin fishing?
In Montana, you learn how to fly fish before you learn how to spin fish. Even before so that my grandfather taught me how to fly fish at a very young age. I, however, don't like fishing personally. Too
Fair
much.
Enough.
I used to throw rocks in the water when people were fishing around me. I was that kid. So.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. Not everybody's Norman McLean, and that's fine. And then snowshoes or cross-country skis?
Snowshoes.
Snowshoes. Okay. Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, that's awesome. Amy, I think we have a couple more questions in the chat, and we've got still a few more minutes.
Gosh, lots more questions. Let's see if I can get to them all. I think in general, what sort of experiences have you had with nature, specifically animals, this winter? And have you seen a lynx?
Yeah, so the majority of my I try to this is their time, right? This is their unimpeded time to not have to deal with us 2-legged creatures. However, the bighorn sheep ladies, they come around a lot. They like to lick off any kind of salt or anything around this area. So if you have a vehicle, I don't have a vehicle out here this year, maybe next year, they have a tendency to get their horns and leave dents in your vehicle when they're licking the salt. And I've seen big moose. They use this little area to the right of me. It's a horse trail. They use that as kind of a highway. The moose have gone lower. I don't see them as much this deep in the winter. I've seen some nice ermines or stoats, little white weasels with the black tipped tails. Plenty of wolf tracks, and I've seen 2 moose that have been taken down by wolves and stripped to the bone. Literally, it looked like they pulled the hide down over this moose's ankles and ate everything else. Its head was left out in the middle of Fisher Cap Lake, which then melted again. So I think that is now at the bottom of the lake. And then I've seen wolverine tracks over by a moose kill over by Josephine. I've seen lynx tracks. You can tell the difference between a mountain lion and a lynx by the little tufts of hair in between the toes. I did not know that until this year. We had a photographer named Sumio Harada, very, very well-known wildlife photographer, who came and hung out. He camped, but they're making a documentary about him in Japan right now. So he had documentary filmmakers with him, and I had them in for tea, and they were showing me some of their footage of the wolves, and it was amazing. I mean, they're out here, but as far, I've only seen the animals that I don't have to worry about.
Amazing. Amazing.
What's really cool are the types of birds that are out here during the wintertime. You would think that there wouldn't be any type of small finch-like things, and they're out here. They're very hardy. I don't know what kind of birds they are, but it's impressive because it's so windy. So
really interesting. Let's see. I can just work my way down the list. Do you stay there the entire winter, or are there occasional runs to town?
So once the road is closed to the public, I'm here. I'm able to go to town in October and November if the weather holds. Generally, the weather gets pretty brutal pretty quickly here, but it hasn't been that way this year. So if I have friends who are hardy enough and foolish enough to hike in and bring me something, which recently just happened, a young man named Eric Pearson, who is a bellman. And those of you who know Many Glacier bellmen know they wear lederhosen. He's amazing. He did not wear the lederhosen on the way in, so I was disappointed for that. But he brought me in some fresh baked bread and a bottle of wine, and there was something else. I made a conscious decision not to have alcohol up here the whole time, so been doing this with a sober mind too, which is a beautiful thing, to remember everything and all that kind of business. But the wine was very nice the other day when I had it.
What a good friend to bring in fresh baked bread and wine.
So I just saw a question that they asked how he got in. Snowmobiles aren't allowed in the park whatsoever in the wintertime. That's an MPS rule. I don't feel I need one. He hiked in because when he hiked in, there was no snow. He left this morning and he skied out. So he has his cross-country skis. He was able to do that. But it's an arduous hike, and you got to be pretty prepared for the elements, especially when you're walking into the park, because you're taking full force, 50-mile-per-hour winds with snow pelting you as you're trying to walk in. So it's not as simple as just walking in, unfortunately.
And it looks like maybe you have another buddy, Paul. He wants to know what's the one thing that you've missed that he can bring you in May, and don't say Liz.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm really having a hard time putting my finger on anything that I really miss beyond human beings and, mushrooms. Like a good chanterelle or something. I love sauteing some chanterelles and morels, Paul, if you find them.
That's a good challenge. Well, Amy, I noticed, by the way, that we actually have a celebrity in the room, the author of this fabulous tome, Ray Duff. So this makes it an international conversation because Ray is joining us from above the border. These are available on glacier.org or in all of the stores in the visitor center. It's a great book. If you've not read it and you're interested in the chalets in the park, you should grab a copy of this book for sure. Ray, thanks for joining us. So Josh, as we get near kind of our time together and we try and keep very close to an hour, it's like, I mean, it's still not at the end of the winter, but what have you learned about yourself?
Without going too much into detail, and I'll broaden it out to kind of everybody in this world goes through difficulties, right? We have things put in our path that challenge us. And sometimes we falter, sometimes we gain that strength. I think what I've realized throughout my lifetime is to be the best person I can be, I need to be an open person. I need to allow people to know me. I think that with experiences I've had, I can help people who might have felt the way that I have in the past, where silence, strong and silent, is the way to go. And so really it's given me a pathway into a clarity that life doesn't have to always be as hard as we make it. Especially since I think all of us have inner strength. We just got to tap into it. So I've found my inner strength. I look forward to continuing on this journey, and really my Instagram for the Winter Caretaker page is at Winter Caretaker in the Wild. If anybody feels lonely, like you think I should feel out here, because I don't feel lonely at all. I feel very connected because of the people who have found their way to me through this. So if you don't ever feel weird about reaching out to me, I guess, because I like having conversations, and it doesn't matter who it's with. If we know each other or not, we can always find common ground, I think. So more friends.
And we put that link to your Instagram in the chat. Also, a link to Ray Duff's book in the Instagram in the chat. And a great comment from Lonnie to you, saying thanks so much for being willing to spend time at Many Glacier to save and protect the hotel and Swift Current properties. Thank you for your service to our country. You are amazing. And I think you have 200 plus new best friends. But we all shouldn't try and come see you, right? This is no easy hike, right? We shouldn't disabuse ourselves to the notion that you've just had 3 or 4 feet of new snow that we should park in Bab and decide to come and knock on your door.
Well, I will say this: I'm not an elitist, but this has been my life growing up. I'm very, very, very comfortable with the outdoors and how to act out there. I can see things that if you've got it, if you feel like you can do it, reach out to me. I'll let you know what the road conditions are, and I'll give you an honest assessment of whether I think it's a good idea or not. Whether you choose to do so after that, always check in with me if you do plan to come, so I can keep an eye out, just in case. So,
yep,
but
I would confident the Park Service would similarly be interested in knowing where people are. They know in wintertime, particularly, they like to know when they might have somebody in a situation.
It's no joke out here. I do have comfort within this domicile, but if I step outside and I'm unprepared, it can be very, very dangerous very fast, just from exposure. So those are all things to keep in mind, and a really good plan is key. So
because it's what, 12 miles to Bab, just something like that.
Yeah, so it's about 12 miles to Bab one way,
right?
But you can't drive. You can only drive, I think you can get within 8 miles of Many Glacier,
right?
And then it's walking all the way in from there, and you're taking the wind that comes out of the mountains directly head on,
Yeah, I mean, again, post-holing, if you're walking, if you're cross-country skiing, you're breaking trail. My wife and I cross-country skied on Groom Trail 6 miles at McDonald Pass last weekend, and that's a full 2-hour sweat fest. That's 6 miles one way.
Right. Not to mention the wildlife that is out here. We gotta,
Right.
you know, this is their one time to really move about freely without having to worry about the anxiety of dealing with human beings. And that being said, there is a wolf pack that likes to hang out by Windy Creek. You know, they have a huge area, and they don't go after humans, but you don't want to be the easiest food source. You know, so that's my that's my rule of thumb.
I consider myself pretty active and capable. The earliest you would see me is when I could ride a bike there, when the place isn't open yet, but the snow's gone. That's doable for me, 14, 15, 16 miles round trip on a bike, great. But yeah, so I really want to urge people. This is a professional occupation for someone who's served our country, and it's still hard. As a casual enterprise, this is certainly above my pay grade, and I would exercise great caution as we think about that. But it's really kind of, I want to ask one more question, and then we'll wrap up here in a minute. But so those are your learnings. What would you say to somebody who is thinking of doing something outside their comfort zone, given your experience? What's the advice you would give to that person, no matter what it is? Just they're going to go do something they're unsure about.
Well, I would say that really, I think anxiety can be a useful tool in these situations. I think if you can touch into what's making you anxious about a new situation, whether it's a new job or moving, and really try to understand it as much as you can. But the reality is, the anxieties, they come from not knowing, right? So I guess what I would say is take that first step. It's always the scariest thing to take the first step in any way, in any situation. You take that first step, you'll see that you have support from others,
right?
Or that you see it's not as scary as you thought it was. And then you jump wholeheartedly into it. And I'll say this as an example, the J1s, those are the internationals who come and work with us at Xanterra for the summertime. A lot of them are from Thailand, Ecuador. They're coming to a country for the first time. English is not their first language, and most of them are starting to be doctors and such, back home. And they get here, and the first thing I do is I show them around, I welcome them, and I let them know that they are welcome here. And I think as long as you can take that first step in your life, there will always be somebody there to welcome you, to help you along the journey. And that's really what it is.
Amazing. Josh Hurley, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, what an incredible evening together. Josh, I hope that you had as much fun as we did. I feel like we all have a new friend, and I just feel so good that special place, very special to me. I've spent a lot of time there in very important parts of my life, and to know that it is in your capable hands under the stewardship of the great people at the National Park Service, our friend Steve Bird and his team in the concessions, and of course Xanterra and their great team. That commitment means a lot, and it's that kind of commitment that is going to keep Glacier Park preserved and protected for future generations. And thank you, Josh Hurley, for being an important part of this. As we say goodnight to each other tonight, I want for everybody to be safe and find peace. And I'm going to find a lot of peace in the words of Josh Hurley, who said, if I'm moving too fast, I'm missing something. So let's all slow down a little bit, tell I love you to the people we love, and be in community with people and things we care about. So thank you all for your support, for your time. Again, I'm Doug Mitchell at the Glacier Conservancy. Check in on us anytime at glacier.org, and we'll look forward to seeing you all soon. Good night and take good care.